Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Coast to the Heart. I am Andee from Minnesota.
And I am Aimee from California. We're from two separate coasts. And on this podcast, we share clean beauty education and topics that are close to our heart. Today, we're going to dive into a series of clean beauty education events that I recently held with teens and adults here in California. And as Bill and Ted so famously said, the best place to be is here, the best time to be is now. And all we can say is, let's talk clean beauty. Okay, well, maybe I changed that last word.
I was like, wait, that's not what they said. I love that.
What did they say? Somebody DM us on our Instagram and let us know if you know that line.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Amy's most excellent adventures. I can't wait to hear all about it, my friend. But first, let's talk a little bit about what it means to you and what it means to me to be a clean beauty advocate. So first of all, Aimee, I know that you've been at the forefront of this movement for over a decade. Can you just remind us and share how you got started?
Absolutely. So yes, it's been about 11 and a half years that I have been involved in clean beauty education and advocacy. I learned about how toxic the personal care industry was from a friend of mine. I had no idea. She called me up. My son was 8. Within 10 minutes of her talking to me about how unregulated the industry was and that there was a solution by linking arms with a company that was trying to change laws and introduce clean products into the world. I said, sign me up. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I can't unknow everything that you just told me. And I need to share everything that I just learned. I was a history major in college. I've always loved research. I love learning. My friends still tease me and call me encyclopedia because I have a lot of random facts in my head about a lot of random stuff. Clean beauty and advocating for that is not random. It's intentional. It's important. And it just became a passion of mine very quickly after I learned sort of what was going on in the industry. And really, besides chatting with you, Andee, every week, doing research for this podcast is really one of my favorite things about this podcast.
Yeah, you inspire me every day, my friend, every single day. And I, my journey has been influenced by many things. I've talked often about my early career in the professional salon industry, working in salon operations at the corporate level and seeing directly how products are formulated for the US, Canada, and the UK, not knowing then, but knowing now why that was required because the beauty industry in the United States is so woefully underregulated that basically you have to make very specific formulations for Canada and the EU, and then everything else you can sell to the uneducated American consumer. But we are here to continue to educate and evolve and share what we learn with other people, and that's really where it started for me. But the way it's continued and why it's continued is because of my 2 daughters. I wanted them to grow up knowing how to make safe and informed choices about the products that they use every single day, and seeing the way that their skin reacts to different products has really opened my eyes and theirs to the importance of ingredient safety. They often come to me, Mom, my skin looks like this, my skin looks like that. What's going on? And we just walk it back and we say, okay, what are you doing differently? What product did you try? How long did you try it for? Let's flip around that bottle and look at the ingredients. By the way, look, we found sneaky polyethylene glycol in there. It wasn't called polyethylene glycol, but we found the derivative. And just being an ingredient safety nerd and sleuth has really helped them make more informed and safer choices that they'll hold all throughout their lives.
And how proud does that make you feel? I mean, when I started this, my son was 8, and now, clean beauty is just part of his knowledge. I mean, it's just, he doesn't really think about it other than I've got to choose the cleaner option. And that just makes me so proud. So while we do this to educate hundreds and thousands of people really doing it at home, first and foremost, and the fact that they're responding. We were actually just recently on vacation and we received a little pack of personal care products on the flight. And the first thing my son did was he's now 18. He handed it over to me and was like, okay, Mom, I think there might be some stuff in here that's not good. Let's take a look at the ingredients. And we went through them all. I'm like, oh my God, my job is done. I was very, Mama. Very, very proud of him. Turns out we couldn't use any of the products. So, but that's okay. We kept the bag it came in. They were cute.
We do the same thing. I was going to say, I don't know if you could do that on your flight to the flight attendant, but that's what we always do. Like we've talked about this before, holidays and birthdays, when a friend gives you this great, Bath and Body Works something, as a birthday gift. And my girls always say, oh, I love it. Thank you for thinking of me. And that's like the code word that they say to me when they're like, I know I can't use this, Mom.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, I think back to one of our first episodes when we talked about the Flamin' Cheetos eyeshadow palette.
Yes. Is there a gift receipt for this? If you haven't listened to that episode, that is our most listened episode because it was so relatable to all of us who are out there saying, I can control what I buy. I can't control what others buy for my kids. So,
Right.
it's all about creating, and it's all about creating really that like knowledge sharing culture that you were talking about, Aimee, that fosters learning and that facilitates decision making and really promotes a sense of unity among everyone. And that's exactly what you did with your events in California, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I love doing events. So yeah, I can jump right in if you want me to. I do love to. Andee and I both. So Andee and I met through advocating and educating, and so we love to do this with each other and with you guys through the airwaves. But being in person and chatting with people in real life just makes me so happy. And I ended up doing 2 events in 1 week recently, and I was on a high from them and chatting with Andee about it. And so we decided, hey, why not share it with our listeners too? And give a little shout out to one of the organizations as well that I was with. So
Well,
one of the events I did. Oh, go ahead, Andee.
I was just gonna say the one that I'm just dying to hear about first. I'm just gonna jump in because you probably have like a favorite in your mind, but I want to hear about your event at the Rosalie Rendu Center. That's probably the first one that's on my mind. Can you tell us about that one?
Yes. So the Rosalie Rendu Center is an organization, nonprofit organization that's in East Palo Alto, California, so just down the road from me. And the center empowers families in their community, primarily East Palo Alto, by providing English as a second language classes and family, cultural, and enrichment activities for working adults and parents year round. So this is the second time I've been speaking with this group. My group consisted of 8 women this time, and they were ranged in ages from 22 to 50, plus 2 teenagers and a baby. And so I got involved with this organization through a friend of mine. I used to work for a nonprofit in the same community that runs tuition-free preschools, and I did that for 10 years. And one of the women I work with at Family Connections now works with the Rosalie Rendu Center. She's also a client. She's also a big supporter of clean beauty and advocating for anything that you believe in. And so last year she asked if I would come speak to this group. And so that's how I got involved, because she knew my passion for clean beauty, and she knew that these women, so many of them are very recent. They've very recently arrived in the United States. They don't have a huge support system. English is definitely a barrier for them. So they're going to this center to find community, to learn a little bit about our culture and, what it's going to be like living here, and then also to learn English, which is pretty amazing. So it's a very rewarding experience to connect with women who are eager to learn and make positive changes for their families. That's why they came here, and that's what they're in the Rosalie Rendu Center to do, is to learn more.
Well, and so all of that actually sounds like a lot. I'm just gonna be really honest. It sounds like a lot for anyone to go through those many changes in your life and then still keep kind of that North Star pointing toward living a healthier and safer and cleaner life. So like I said, that feels like there's a lot on my heart thinking about that and a lot in my mind. So tell us what that event was actually like.
So it started this one. So the first one I did last year, the women didn't bring any products with them. And we just, we kind of talked about clean beauty. I start out talking about beauty products in general. They all use them. So we get an agreement there that, yes, we love beauty products. And so then I start to talk to them a little bit about some of the ingredients in their products and why it's really important to know what is in your products. Now, the good news is I had an amazing translator. She was a woman who's actually been here for a little while. And so I know that even more of my message really, got through to them, because she would stop me and translate, and everyone would nod and, have questions. So that was pretty amazing to have that connection with them that way as well. But we just kind of, I do a very basic education about ingredients and why it's important to know what's in your products and what the reason why. And the reason why is that there could be detrimental effects to the earth, but also to their bodies. And all of these women have children. As I mentioned, some of the children were in the room. And so they were very interested to hear about the potential harmful effects that some of the ingredients in the products that they were regularly using may have. And this time they actually brought their products with them. So that was even more powerful, because we were able to talk about what they were using, offer them some clean swaps. And in both cases, I brought clean products with me so that they could see and feel and touch them and kind of, see that, oh yeah, okay, well, it doesn't look any different than the product I was using, but it's much better for me.
Well, and you were saying that there was a lot of aha moments, a lot of head nods, a lot of engagement. And I truly imagine there was a lot of eye-opening moments, especially when they're bringing products that they've maybe used their whole lives or that are new
Mhm.
to them since, they've relocated and they are trying to navigate the best on their own. And again, we always say do the best you can until you know better. When you know better, do better, right? That comes right from Maya Angelou. And I think that is something that if we continue to learn without judgment and educate without judgment, that is how we all, again, create and continue this movement that we're a part of. So, I guess what was one of the biggest surprises that you heard from this group?
I think first and foremost, they had a lot of questions about sunscreen. And so everyone was very surprised to hear that sunscreen can not only have chemicals that are harsh for the body, but also for the environment, especially the ocean. And that really was a big eye opening. And so they really wanted me to write down the names of all the, clean sunscreens, all the brands that they should be using. And that seemed to be something that right away they were going to make a change because they really were surprised to hear that sunscreen, which is something that is supposed to be keeping us healthy and taking care of us, was actually not so great, most of the ones on the market. And then I think the other one was their perception that the makeup they had, the bright colors, whatever, the products that they had were not, the clean options weren't going to perform as well. And so it was nice to have clean options for them to play with. And there was a lot of eye opening, like, wow, I love this mascara. Oh my gosh, I can do, also, I had an amazing interpreter and I had an amazing makeup artist in the room. She's not a professional, but she was so good. So she was doing all the women's makeup and she was doing some very elaborate eyeshadow situations. And they loved that the clean products worked just as well as the ones that they had brought in, which were not so clean. A couple of them had some great products, some makeup wipes that were really clean. I'd never heard of them, but when we looked them up, so I did introduce them all to the Healthy Living app as well. So everyone pulled that out, downloaded it on their phone, loved to have that as a resource. And some of the products that they did have were clean, which I was really happy to see because they didn't intentionally buy them clean, but good news that clean products are working their way into the mainstream and just, being on those shelves and being purchased, which was great.
Well, and it's great that you are sharing with them and you're sharing with all of us the tools that are currently available to make informed decisions. And like all technology, those tools are getting better over time. We're starting to see more apps on our phones. We're starting to see retailers have their own scoring and safety systems to help guide everyone. No, again, most people are not hiding behind the fact that they are selling harmful products. They want to be proud and elevate the brands that are eco-conscious, paraben-free, phthalate-free, all of those things. It's become, more or less a marketing tactic. And so brands are becoming more not only aware, but proud of marketing their safety and sustainability mission. So did you notice any changes in their attitudes or, and then I think you just said it, like attitudes or behaviors by the end of this meeting? I mean, even we think about the payoff and a powder eyeshadow, being surprised or having this perception that a clean talc-free eyeshadow is not going to have staying power or lasting power or that color payoff, that rich color payoff that we all want. What are any other, I should say, like behaviors that you saw from this group by the end of the session?
Well, first and foremost, it was them downloading the app and knowing that they had a resource, and they love the fact that they could scan the products and just it was very simple: scan, see a safety rating, and then that's a great tool for them. I also created kind of a never list or a restricted list for them and translated into Spanish of like the 30 most commonly used toxic ingredients and gave that to them. And they all, were looking at it. They were taking notes on that. They all tucked it into their purses. So I feel like that might be a reference for them, which will be good for when they're out shopping if they don't have the app with them, or just start to get to know some of these harmful chemicals that are in the products that they're looking at. And I translated into Spanish, but also gave them the English version because if they're shopping here, a lot of those products, the packaging will be in English. And they just had a lot of questions. They wanted my contact information. One person has already reached out to me again to remind her again which sunscreens she should buy. So, and they, invited me back again. So that's good. But I definitely think there will be some more thought put into, before they make a purchase. And it just felt so good to be part of their experience as they are, embarking on sort of a new life here and being able to contribute to sort of the cultural education that they are experiencing.
Well, and I love that you made a restricted list in, both Spanish and again, noting the fact that that might be difficult if we're talking about phthalates in the US on our label, it might be called something completely different. And Amy, I'd love to link that list in our show
Oh,
notes today
yes,
for our
absolutely.
listeners to download. So it's really important, again, that not only are we here speaking and helping you walk the walk, but that we're putting these tools in your hands and that you can use them all throughout your life. So that work that you did in that room was really incredible. And I also then now want to kind of shift gears into something that's a little bit more personal to me, which is also my passion, which is teen education, and especially in the makeup area, because like all things, influencers are really, really powerful in how decisions and safety decisions are made, especially when it comes to the products that we put on our bodies and the makeup trends that we follow. So whether it's, injectables to highlighters to glow serums to snail mucin, all of the things that we talk about, teens are listening, but they are conscious consumers. They are educated consumers. So how did your teen education party go?
Oh, it was so much fun. I think teens are probably my favorite age group to educate because they are our future. They are absolutely involved in the personal care industry. They are consumers. And so, and they're young, right? I wish I had learned what I learned. Gosh, what was I, 40, 41, 42 when I first learned about how toxic the industry was. And I certainly wished I was 14 when I had learned about all that. So they were a great group. There were 8 young women who are all going to be freshmen in high school. They've been longtime friends, and they already knew, a lot about the basics. They definitely washed their face. They sunscreen, again, really big. They definitely know sunscreen something they should use, and cruelty free was really important to them too. They didn't necessarily all know how to identify whether a product was cruelty free, but that was like a buzzword that they're like, oh, we like to use cruelty free products, which I like to hear as well. So their knowledge kind of varied in terms of the skincare industry and how unregulated it was. By the end, they knew a heck of a lot more. I will tell you that.
And on that note, I think, again, as we come back to the advocacy piece, you think of the woefully underregulated United States versus the EU. As Amy and I continue to learn about EU standards, cruelty free is not as buzzy in the EU. Why? Because it's table stakes. It's a given. It is required. Actually, I shouldn't say it's required. It's illegal to test on animals, full stop. So again, that's a difference in the cultural upbringing that we have, that we are now celebrating the awareness of teens and youth who want to know how products are tested, not just the end product. We want them to hopefully be Leaping Bunny certified, which means that the ingredients throughout the whole life cycle have never been tested on animals. But we're now just growing that culture and that generation whom that's important to. And meanwhile, that's been happening in the EU for decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what were some of the, I mentioned that they're all brand conscious, and you said that they're liking the cruelty free. What were some brands that they were calling out that they liked?
So it was kind of all over the board. So they love Kosas for makeup, which is definitely a cleaner brand. So I gave them a thumbs up for that. They all just assumed that Aquaphor, Vaseline, CeraVe, and Cetaphil were like the cleanest, most gentle things that they could use. So we had a lot of good conversation around petrolatum and petroleum that's found in a lot of those products, and also that CeraVe and Cetaphil, unfortunately, are not as clean. Not all their products are as clean as we would like. So that led into a discussion of let's talk about specific ingredients. They really wanted swaps for lip balm, though. These girls love, even the ones that don't wear makeup at all, they really wanted a good lip balm. Some of the other brands, Fenty, they were huge fans of Rihanna's makeup brand, Fenty. I don't think I have not used any of her products, so I was unfamiliar. I do know she has a really broad shade range, which is nice. Did a little research, not as clean as I would like it to be, but Summer Friday, which that is a cleaner brand. So I was happy to hear they use that. Glossier was a very popular one. Charlotte Tilbury and Milk. Some that I was familiar with, some that I wasn't. Although they didn't realize that not all the products from every brand was safe. So I kind of mentioned that. So we just can't assume that because Cetaphil or CeraVe may have 1 or 2 clean options, that everything from that line is. So it's still important to do your research. They also didn't realize they do a lot of shopping at Ulta and Sephora. Is primarily where these girls shop. And they didn't realize that within Ulta and Sephora, there are clean areas, conscious clean brands that both of these stores highlight. And so I did recommend to them, if you don't have your healthy living app and you're not sure what you want, when you walk into those stores, at least start in those departments. Now, it doesn't mean that every single one of those products is as clean as, that set the standard as high as Andee and I would like for our children to use, but it's still much cleaner than the rest of the store. So that was really eye-opening for them to know about that. So it was a really great opportunity to teach them a little bit about that, ingredients, how to read labels, why it's important to read labels.
And if you're listening, Aimee is literally describing my everyday walking through Sephora and Ulta with my girls. I can actually picture the racks and the displays as you walk through each of these brands and us like nodding and shaking our heads at the same time. And I think there's, we're never here to brand bash or to say, don't use this product. For example, Glossier, they're part of the Bluebird Climate Program, meaning that they are very focused on sustainable packaging, sustainability, right? So that's fantastic. However, there's, ingredients of concern in their products, and that's why my kids choose not to use them. Same thing would be for, let's say, Charlotte Tilbury. Again, the goal is to be cleaner and safer, but I always ask my kids, especially with powder cosmetics, okay, it says that it's talc free. Great. But do you know if they test for heavy metals? And if they test for heavy metals, do they publish and disclose their heavy metal results, meaning that they are at 0 or non-detectable levels? And I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 times it's a no. We can't find these results anywhere. And that's the point. Again, we're trying to know better and do better. And we're not saying, stay away from any one particular brand, but there's always another tail in the story. There's always another layer of that onion you need to peel back. So at least having the guides that Aimee talked about, which is conscious clean at Ulta and clean at Sephora, I kind of just tell my kids as a rule of thumb, don't even bring it to me. If it's not even in those categories, don't even bring it to me. So I love that. And so you talked about that. You talked about a couple of the certifications that each of the brands might have. Do you want to run through a couple of those to remind, just again, as you're giving these great visual cues, Aimee, of what are some of the certifications or icons that you can look for on packaging?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did talk about the packaging and that they should look for Leaping Bunny certified products. Also, if they're using the app, look for EWG verified products because that's the cleanest stamp of approval that at least the Environmental Working Group can give. And so, if you look on the package, you can see words like paraben free, fragrance free. We talked a lot about going fragrance free, and some of them knew that, others didn't. I always like to use the example of, okay, you guys, if it's a super bright color or a really strong scent, chances are you want to avoid that. It's probably not going to be the best thing for your body or the environment or both. They were really interested in swaps, which I love. So they wanted to know, they rattled off with some of the brands that I mentioned to you guys, what brands they use. And we looked them up, and if they weren't clean, then they wanted to know an alternative. So I really like that. So instead of just like, oh, well, it's not clean, I'm still going to use it. And some of them may. And we talked about living in an 80-20 world. And I told them, please do not go home and throw away all your things. I just want you to be more aware when you are purchasing your next product, which you will be because you all buy a lot of products. In this $50 billion a year industry in the United States alone, a huge chunk of that comes from teens. And so that was all really good discussion. I forgot to mention too, just like at the Rosalie Rendu Center with these teens, I also brought products. So they were able again to experience clean skincare and makeup products. And they were so fun. I took a ton of pictures. They had such a blast doing makeup on each other. They kind of paired up and gave each other little makeovers. But they also were able to see that like, okay, oh my gosh, this clean foundation or tinted moisturizer really is buildable and does give me the coverage that I want. Or I love the feel of this lip gloss. This isn't sticky. I love it. Feels so much better than the one I use. So having products there, I think was really critical as well to see that the clean stuff actually works and feels good and is nice to use.
And you were doing something that they can't experience on Instagram or TikTok or
Mm-hmm.
Snapchat. And I am that elder millennial who still is waiting for social media to have scratch and sniff as like as an option because I think that's the thing. It's really important. You don't know the texture. You don't know how it feels on your skin. You don't know what it smells like. So, right now my girls even though they've grown up knowing the F word to stay away from fragrance, parfum, that artificial label, they're really into scents and wearing scents and having a scent to identify with. And my middle schooler loves Sol de Janeiro, and my high schooler loves, Beauty Counter's Clean Eau de Parfum. And those two formulas could not be any different than one another, but both have the lasting staying power, and they both feel confident about it. And I think that's the example of saying you can have safer and you can have higher performing, but you need to do the research. And that's where you come to folks like Aimee and I to help guide you along that path. So how, on that note, and just big eye openers, was there anything that they were shocked about? We're not trying to like leave this teen event by saying like, how did we make them feel bad about their choices? It's not that, but how did they feel after learning about potentially harmful or toxic ingredients in the products that they brought to you?
I think they seemed excited. I gave them all little charcoal masks to do later. It was a sleepover party, so they were going to do those later, and they couldn't wait to try those because we did talk about the dangers of some of those peel-off masks that are so easy and fun and cute, and you can look like a bunny or a turtle, and then you peel the mask off. But unfortunately, sometimes those have plastic in them. They can also be peeling off the top layers of your skin. So I think it was very eye-opening, and they learned. They learned, I think, just to think a little bit more before they purchase. I did ask them, do you guys think, because they do love TikTok, and that's where they get a lot of their the product recommendations. And so I said, do you think that all those influencers on TikTok actually use the products that they're selling to you? And they're like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's why they look so amazing. I'm like, unfortunately, that isn't always the case. It's just like, Nicole Kidman may be, advertising Revlon lipstick, but pretty sure she's not only wearing Revlon lipstick. So, and maybe she is. I have no knowledge there, but you just have to be careful that oftentimes people that are encourage you to try something, they may not be actually using it themselves, or may not truly believe in it the same way. So make your own decisions for yourself. Absolutely be influenced by the things that look really pretty and cool, but just do a little bit of research to make sure that it's going to be good for you. And there's some great positive influencers out there as well. So that was really good too. So yeah, I think and then the mom who hosted them, she emailed me later and said, oh my gosh, the dinner, the girls are talking about all the things that you guys had talked about. One other thing I want to mention is a few of the girls, when we were talking about ingredients, said, gosh, you know what? I used to use, blank brand, but my skin felt really itchy or hurt. And so that was a really good way to kind of talk about, what that was. Most likely it was the ingredients reacting to your skin and these particular products one of them was retinol, did use some harsher ingredients. And so we talked about, well, what it's doing is it's actually stripping your skin's moisture barrier, making you more susceptible to irritation. So you didn't realize maybe that it was the product that was making your skin itch, but it was the thing you were putting on your face to make it feel better that was actually making it feel worse. So all in all, super fun, and we had a ton of fun as well. It wasn't just, serious, harmful discussion.
I wish someone like you had come to sleepover parties when I was a teen
or
middle schooler.
Sleepover parties. It was so fun. And mom and dad were so happy. They're just like kicking back, relaxing. And we spent almost 2 hours together. It was really fun.
Oh my gosh.
I did bring little like headbands and clean makeup wipes and all that kind of stuff for them. So they had fun with all that.
It sounds like you made a huge impact on these young women. And now, Aimee, I'm going to ask you a question. How did they make an impact on you?
Well, I get like the chills just thinking about it. Like I said earlier, they're my favorite age group to talk to. But anytime I get to have a conversation with anybody and give them a little bit of education or a little bit of information about how they can make different choices that will be better for their bodies in the long run or better for the environment feels good. And so when I get genuine questions and I see like the women at the Rosalie Rendu Center taking notes, or the girls, actually looking at the Healthy Living app or scrolling through TikTok to see what some of these things were that they wanted to ask me about, it just fills my heart with happiness. This is just, it is my, it's my calling. This is what just makes me happy. And so even if there were just been one girl in the room that maybe next time she buys a lip balm makes a cleaner choice, that will make me really happy. So it's why I do what I do, and I'll keep doing it. And hopefully, one conversation at a time, we'll continue to clean up this industry.
Well, and one way that our listeners can actually have their own type of, event with Aimee virtually is by participating in the Clean Edit. Yes. The Clean Edit is always available to you, where our listeners can submit their personal care routines, what they're using on a daily basis in their homes throughout their lives. It's reviewed by Aimee and Andee, and we go through, we review the ingredients, we make recommendations for safer alternatives. If you choose to allow us, we'll share it on an upcoming show. And the fun thing is that when we make a recommendation to you, we're going to send you a recommendation in the mail. So it's kind of doing that same thing for you. But again, we want to use real life examples, not just share our experiences, but share your experiences as well. I know that my daughters definitely benefit from learning all this information from you, Aimee, and so do I. So it really is incredible that you're making such an impact in your local community.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's all about fostering a knowledge sharing culture. We offer others an opportunity to gain insights and learn from our experiences and all the, information we have. And then we learn from them as well. I learned about brands to look into, or I learn about habits that teens have. And so then I can, better talk to the next group, more targeted conversation based on what I know, what their habits are. So it's why we do what we do, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Aimee, for sharing your recent experiences. Like I said, it's so inspiring to partner with you and to work with you and hear about the impact that you're making on a coast that's so far away from me, talking about topics that are close to your heart.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to share. And to all you listeners, we hope you found this episode helpful. As Andee mentioned, reach out to us. We're happy to do a virtual, clean edit conversation with you. Don't forget to check our show notes for links to all the resources that we talked about today.
Thanks for tuning in to Coast to the Heart. We'll see you next time, everyone.